GM everyone, and welcome to Smart Contact, an interview series with the world's most important, influential, and impactful Web3 leaders. This podcast is produced by Web3 Harbour. Like and subscribe for more Smart Contacts.
Welcome to another episode of Smart Contact, produced by Web3 Harbour, and supported this episode by Blackpine. I'm Gary Liu, co-founder and CEO of Terminal 3, and I have the privilege of chairing Web3 Harbour. We are recording today's Smart Contact with Michael Figge, the new CEO of Yuga Labs. Yuga does not need much of an introduction. They are the team behind BAYC, Otherside, and ApeCoin. And we are going to touch on all of those things today. But before Bored Apes and Yuga, Figge already had a heck of a career. I want you to tell us that story. So first of all, Figge, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Let's jump right into it.
Sure.
Tell us your story.
Oh yeah, we'll go to the Old Testament. We'll go back. So I lived a life before Web3. Like I worked in a different field. So originally I studied film. I'm from Los Angeles, and I worked in film for a while and picked up things like 3D animation. And it was at a time where, nowadays on YouTube, you could learn anything. Anything you want to learn about, watch your YouTube videos. But YouTube, it's like 2008. So YouTube wasn't really like at that level yet. So you had to meet like strangers on the internet and like message boards and trade project files. It was a very different time. And what wound up happening is in 2010, I founded a company that specialized in live events, live event creative. And there was nobody really addressing that. Like live events are something, there's so much invisible work that goes into a live event. And the way that technology was entering into that field, especially in music, like at the time, it was a big transition away from people paying for music. Like you couldn't find people that would pay $10 for an album, but they'll pay $100 to go see a concert.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that live event experience is where the value was really flowing. And I wound up doing that super hard. So I did that for and the company's still around. So the company's all possible. I founded this company in 2010 and it's still around today. So 16 years later. I don't work there anymore. I'm still an owner, but I don't work there anymore. I have full-time at Yuga. But it has offices in LA, New York. They're thinking about opening one in Riyadh. It's probably one of the top 3 companies in the world that does like live, concert design. So in that time, I worked on probably over 200 arena and stadium tours.
Goodness.
Like a lot. And it was music, it was esports, it was fashion, just all over because the demand for that was real. But it wasn't really there when I started. It was something that grew over time, and you could just kind of guess that that's where things were going. And, kind of how I got my way to Web3 was in 2020. So I was in Shanghai, I was working on a very complicated show, and I came back, and one of the guys who I met like way back in the day on the message boards, on the internet, was a guy by the name of Mike Winkleman. And now he's known as Beeple, which is he's the biggest digital artist in the world, certainly the biggest Web3 artist. And we had just done a show together in 2020. And after that show, we worked together for over 10 years at that point for this. And he was like, look, man, I'm going to take a break from the work and I'm going to go try this NFT thing. And I was like, what is that?
And this was in 2020?
2020. This is September 2020. And I just gotten back from Shanghai and I go, okay, yeah, go for it. When you work with creative people, they're always going off and doing some other project. Oh, hey, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do this thing. Go, what is that? And I'm working on a short film. I'm working on. So he's like, I'm going to do this NFT thing. And I went, okay, great. And then in October at one point, he was touching base with me. He's like, hey, I'm going to stick to doing this NFT thing for a while. And I couldn't remember exactly what it was. I think he made 150 grand in a weekend or something. And then
there's a lot more money to come after that.
There's a lot more to come after that. But it was what is this whole situation? I've been crypto curious before that. I was trading Bitcoin in 2013, 2014. It didn't really stick with me. And then ICOs in 2017 didn't really stick with me. But once NFTs came about, I kind of got it, because that's about content and tokenizing content. And that's a field that I worked in, like digital art, all that stuff. So this cycle kind of like captured me in a way that I hadn't really expected. And, I'd done over 200 arena and stadium tours. I kind of know every way that conversation is going to go, whether it's with a promoter or a manager or up and coming artist. I was ready for something new to challenge me. And so that's kind of how I first got exposed into Web3. I had like a front row seat to my buddy could become like the next Warhol, the next Murakami,
the guy.
which is crazy. Yeah. And for the lore, if people don't know, like literally a couple of months later in March, he sold the first NFT at Christie's for $69 million. And then April after that, he like 1 month later, he sold another 15 million. So he's like just so good at playing with the creative. And he's always been that way. He was always a different kind of artist of, who you could work with. But my first NFT actually was, I bought something to support him early on. I bought a Beeple. It was my first NFT. And then my second NFT was a Bored Ape.
And how did you stumble onto Bored Apes at that point?
Well, so after he sold the piece for the $69 million or whatever, we had actually talked a lot about NFTs at that point. And Top Shot was an interesting project that was going on. So Top Shot's all about like NBA moments. Right. There's a LeBron's
good old
dunk,
Dapper Labs back then.
Yeah. And we were at dinner in January that year, and we were talking about like, oh, why is it just basketball moments? Couldn't you do that with like any kind of moment? Like, couldn't you go to the Michael Jackson estate and like license the moonwalk? Couldn't you go to Neil Armstrong's estate and the moon landing? Like, couldn't you like tokenize anything that's a memory? Couldn't you tokenize memory? And I don't know, whatever. We had that idea. We put it on a show. It was a dinner conversation.
Yeah.
And then once he sold that piece, there's so many people inbound to be like, things about like where this is going to go that nobody else does. So what are your ideas? And that was just one of the dinner ideas on the shelf, is just like, what if we went around tokenizing memory? And so we came up with a company together, and it was, we were the co-founders, and we started doing that. And I really thought that we would actually have like a demand problem, because it's such a zany thing. Hey, I'm going to tokenize my memory. Do you want to collect it? And I thought we would have to do some education around that. I still think it's a really good idea, but it was, we raised money for it. It was so possible. My first company, I bootstrapped that. There's no outside investors. You have to make more money than you spend. It's a pretty straightforward business, and it grew slow and steady.
Right.
But this business was a venture business, and you're like raising money, you're putting together a big team. It's tech, it's complicated. There's dependencies. So it was just a different thing. And there is some like learning on the job that you have to do, even though you're very experienced. And again, in my old life, I had like a 1 year waiting. Like if you wanted me to work on your show, like there was a waiting list, right? I got to this new industry and I was like, I got these ideas. I want people to work with me. Nobody wanted to work with me.
And were you full time? Like, did you go head first into this?
Head first. Yeah.
So at that point, you'd already stopped really working.
Yeah.
At Possible.
Yeah.
And on live events, you went head first into this.
We didn't know how big of a thing it was going to become. Like, we were like, maybe this is just a really big project. And so, I don't know. I think it still took some time to be like, wait, man, this is its own thing now, right? But I started calling up all the different people. So we had like 40 deals at the 1 yard line. And we made a couple of them. Like, there's a couple of moments that we would put out. But I think I was incorrect that there would be a demand problem. The demand was there. Everybody, like, we sold out in 5 minutes of everything we put out. We had a supply problem. People, the financialization of memory is a complicated thing.
Oh, yeah.
And some people would say, oh, wow, that's what their memory is valued at? Well, my memory is worth more. I should get a minimum guarantee that my memory is worth more. So it's like, it's a complicated thing to get somebody to agree to work with you. And, like a month went by. And it was largely business development. It's just like talking to these people, explaining the concept. Everybody loved the concept. But when it came time to sign on the line to be like, okay, cool, we're going to tokenize my memory and sell editions of it, just everybody was waiting for somebody else to go first.
And then eventually, of course, this company and Yuga intersected.
Yeah.
How did that intersection happen?
Well, because we were stuck for a while. I had a great team at that company, but I didn't know what to do. It was it's actually really, it's one of these entrepreneurial, like you chew glass and stare into the abyss moments when you're like, wow, we're totally stuck on the idea that I raised money for. And I looked around at Web3, and one thing that people were really interested in was like Artifact was doing something with CryptoPunks, where they're taking like CryptoPunks and putting them on like Air Force Ones, this type of shoe. And people went crazy for it. And I get it. It's like one thing you love plus another thing you love equals a new thing you love. Right? It's an easy idea to understand, but like as somebody who was like a pro digital artist, I was like, this is very easy to do. I could do this tonight. And so I did. So I was like, in fact, I'm going to take all the Bored Apes, I'm going to scrape by PFS, and I'm going to get 10,000 of them and do 10,000 shoes. And I'm just going to give them out to people this weekend. Because if people love him so much, I'm going to do a better job of that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that took off. That's the thing that eventually led me to Yuga. Because I was an early builder in the Bored Ape community. I was building with IP. I was creating derivative assets. And, that weekend, so Twitter has this limit where like you can only do 1,000 DMs in a day. And I never knew about this, but like I posted somebody's shoe. They tell all their friends who tell all their friends. And within 30 minutes, I had 1,000 DMs. So I was like, oh, this is something. I went back to my team and they were like, yeah, this is something. We should ditch everything else we're working on and try to
do
make
this
happen.
This was 2022?
21.
21.
At this point, yeah.
And then you officially joined Yuga through this acquisition in 22.
Yeah, so I did this project and it went pretty far. Like it was like a show on the blockchain every week, but it was masquerading as digital fashion, which is a very hot topic now and then. And it was a community of communities where I would make all this apparel for all these different PFPs. And I wound up talking with the founders at Yuga. I like the idea of Otherside, which is a project that they were working on. And I thought, that's what our company should do. We should be a premier developer on that. So I met with the founders of Yuga. I have like a 5-minute pitch. Be like, this is why you should work with me. And that turned into like a 3-hour conversation.
Those are great.
And by the end of it, it was like, hey, we should just buy your company and you should work with us. And so that was unexpected, but that's May of 22. And May of 22 was filled with a lot. So like that was the Otherside mint. That was Federal Reserve raising the interest rates from 0 to 4%. That was Celsius and Terra Luna. Like there were a lot of things that happened then that changed the landscape of what we were in. So we went to M&A, mergers and acquisitions, conversation that lasted until November. And so it was months and months of like just this industry changing. And I actually joined.
November was FTX.
Well, I joined Yuga the week FTX collapsed. So we like just made it in time. Yeah.
So a lot happened that year that you became part of the Yuga family.
Yeah.
But a lot more has happened since then.
Yes.
And we're sitting here now, June of 2026.
Yes.
In Hong Kong, and many of the stories that you were telling from live events. And by the way, I have to note, September of 2020, you were doing a live event in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Of course, the rest of the world was shut down because of COVID.
Yeah.
China had reopened by April.
Yeah.
And life was pretty much, of course, the borders were still very locked down, but the fact that there was these very large format public live events in China, starting from April, and in September, you were even there to run one. That's something we forget.
Well, yeah, it was a very
moment in time.
I had to come in with the whole team, and we went to like a government quarantine hotel for like 2 weeks, and then another week in Shanghai. So you felt very safe in Shanghai because
it was
there was no way anybody had it after that quarantine.
My point is that a lot of these stories that actually intersect with the city that we're sitting in, right? Mike Beeple, he's been here so many times. He's debuted so many pieces of art here in Hong Kong. We've had the privilege of hosting him as well. And in 22, Hong Kong also had this moment where in October, the Hong Kong government, I don't mean to bore our audience here, but the Hong Kong government came and did a complete 180 on what they thought about blockchain and on-chain assets. And that was really when the Hong Kong Web3 community that had been sitting latent. Hong Kong was OG in Web3, an OG with Bitcoin traders. At 1.6 of the top 10 exchanges, crypto exchanges in the world were either domiciled or founded here in Hong Kong. But by 2022, the entire industry had gone underground because we thought that it was not going to be welcome here. October of 2022, that completely changed. Web3 Harbour was founded shortly after that. And then a lot of the projects that are now pillars of the industry in Asia started in Hong Kong an ensuing year or so from there. Okay. But from that point until 2026, and in the middle of that, a couple of years ago, you guys came over here and had Ape Fest here,
Yep.
which we still remember very fondly. In that time, the industry has shifted, and it shifted dramatically and in multiple stages. We went from NFTs and collectibles and community to gaming, still community. And now we are squarely in an age where meme coins have gone. They're gone. And we're now talking about adult stuff. We're adulting now as an industry. Regulated digital assets. The big banks are involved. World's largest asset managers are involved. It is policies. It is regulators, compliance, all that stuff. Now it's brought hundreds of billions and soon to be trillions of dollars into the market on chain. We're starting to come on chain. But a lot of that innocence and that creativity and the thing that many of us in this room, the thing that drove us into Web3 in the first place seems to have gone. What is your take on it? This shift that has happened from 2022 to now in your 4 years at Yuga, the shift. How do you describe this shift when you think back on it? And is it a good one?
Yeah, I think one thing that we can all count on in this industry is that like everything will always shift. Like I don't think I've ever felt like I've stood on solid ground in this industry. And the way that you brought up like October of 22, the perspective on this side of the world changed. We were living under a regime where that was fairly anti-crypto in the United States. So I think there's also like regional challenges as well. And a lot of the way we moved and the structures that were formed were all in an effort to be kind of like contort into a compliant thing in a legal gray zone when all we were asking for is clarity. So with the new administration, which was ultra crypto friendly, I think we saw people get very comfortable launching meme coins, launching all of this stuff. So the meta was changing against the regulatory framework too. Certainly, like it was a great moment. Like one of the things that I think is a real pity for the space is the loss of royalties to creators of NFTs. I think we saw a lot of people join the space in 21 and 22 and take a stab at it because through their work, they could find a way to sustain themselves to keep contributing to the space. But I think once that royalty situation went away, I think a lot of talent and fun people left the space and went to go back to do their old thing.
There was a huge battle there. And, Bored Apes, Yuga, and Amoka here in Hong Kong were very much on the same side when it came to royalties. And with the power of these two organizations, as well as the exchanges that actually did believe in royalties, one would have guessed that we would have won that royalty battle, right? That royalties would have remained in the industry. So what happened? How did we lose that?
Well, I think a lot of people were drawn in with the promise of royalties that they would always be there. Like it was some sort of protocol enforced thing. And it wasn't. It's a marketplace enforced thing. So when you had a marketplace in Blur that was like, hey, we're just not going to enforce them, that actually kind of disrupted the narrative that a lot of like artists and creative people were sold on, that this is a different system. This is a different system that could give you a cut of the work that you've done. So I think, look, we fought the good fight about like trying to make the royalties happen back then and trying to pressure the marketplace, understanding our spot as leaders in the industry of NFTs. But one of the hardest things is like in this industry, it's hard to fight market forces. Even if you philosophically believe in something, market forces will kind of do their own thing. And I think the market forces spoke on it pretty clearly. Like if it's not something that's enforced by a protocol, traders, collectors, like they just don't want to pay it. even if you put it optional. So people will just prefer to pay the lower price. And, I think if there was a world where tokens had enforceable royalties at a protocol level, we would have probably kept more talent in for longer.
Okay, that's a fair point. If you were to ask the protocols at that point in time, when the royalty battle was going on, and we did actually ask protocols at that point, why is it that you're not even considering the enforcement of royalties at the token level? One of the answers, I'm not suggesting that this is universal, but one of the answers from a protocol leader was because right now, NFTs and their share of the market just is not large enough for that to be our focus. Because by that time, the percentage of total on-chain assets or the percentage of NFTs the percentage of NFTs in context of total on-chain assets had decreased quite a bit, that percentage.
Yeah.
But the power of those communities was still there, right?
Yep.
Today, that percentage has decreased even further.
Yeah.
Where is the power now? On-chain communities, are they coalesced around the really, really boring adult, like the tokenized asset stuff now? Or is there still a significant role to play for, this is very much a leading question, for the creative communities, the IP asset communities on-chain?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that first point that you brought up, like it is possible at a protocol level for some of these folks to like get together. Like you've seen it on Solana. Solana Metaplex was able to come up with, they just did it. Like on Solana, NFTs have enforced creator royalties, but we never got there with Ethereum. And I think it is because of the reason that you said, which is people who trade in fungible tokens aren't the same people who value
Completely
NFTs.
different.
They're completely different. And I don't think that they share the same value system. All that said, I do think that the people who are still around, the people who are building today, they're really here for the community, for the people that they met along the way. And they are here still to make money. Like they are here still to catch the new thing. But I don't think the creators are here with the expectation of the royalties that they once were. They are here because they want to figure out how to build a brand in Web3 and how to. The interesting thing that Web3 solves for is that like it solves the cold start problem. Like you can bootstrap liquidity in Web3 faster than any other way, right? Most of the time, if you build a platform or a product, you go, how do I get my first 100 users? Web3 is really good at solving that part, right? So there's definitely a good reason for people to want to come here and build products. There's other trade-offs that you have to make. For the Bored Ape Yacht Club, that's one of the things that we've tried to recenter on is just like getting back to the community, getting back to all of the people. And we just had an event last night and we had over 80 Bored Apes come to it. And the vibes are just so high. Like everybody loves to connect and meet like-minded people. The thing about Bored Ape events is like also people don't ask you what you do. It doesn't matter. Like you're there because you have a shared commonality in these digital assets. And like you might find that out like a couple meetings later. Like you didn't even know what this person looked like before they got here because everybody has like a Bored Ape as their profile picture. So yeah, community and branding is definitely something that that has endured the test of time.
Let's talk about that community over those 4 years that you've now been part of Yuga. How has that community changed? So that community today in 2026 look different than it was in 2022?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, I think everybody has to remember that we are in an industry that's made out of cycles. So even though there was like a lot of hype at one point and the chart has gone down, it's like, well, how does that get back up again? And something that I looked at before 60 days ago, I announced that I'm the CEO of Yuga.
It's only been 16?
60
days ago.
Like 2 months.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I was like, yeah, there's a case to be made here for like the next cycle of this thing going in the direction that I think it's going to go, is I would look at unique holder counts. If you look at the unique holder counts for the tokens, it's only been climbing for the last 1 year, for the last 3 years. And if you study it further in the last 2 years, 72% of the new wallets that have come in are net new users. They're not people that are buying an extra Bored Ape. There's somebody that got priced out of the last cycle and they're like, I wish I got one of those. And now that, the prices come down, they're re-entering. So if you actually, I wouldn't pay attention to, the short-term price as much as the long-term unique holder count. and what that graph actually shows. Because I think what it's shown is that there's actually a lot of new holders that have rotated in that want to be a part of this next wave. And that's what you see with every multi-cycle token. Like look at Bitcoin, it's gone up and it's gone down, and then new people cycle in to be a part of that next wave. I think Bored Ape Yacht Club is going to be a multi-cycle token the same way.
Do you guys track engagement of holders? And if you do, how? How do you measure engagement?
A lot of the values that we have are, people want to remain anonymous sometimes. And that's changed a lot over the last 4 years. I think people are less guarded with their identity, and they're more welcome to say like who they are, what their real name is. But for that reason, we don't like mine data or anything like that in the way that you would in Web2. What we try to do is find trends on chain. We try to see who's interacting with stuff, what part of the world are they interacting with. It's certainly not down to like a per user type thing, but we try to notice trends like the ones that I've just mentioned, because that's where we start to get the real signal. And, it paints a bigger story too. Like, I think for a while there was a big narrative around like gaming. Like gaming is going to be the thing that onboards millions and millions of users. But actually the sober take, in my opinion, is you go to these gaming conferences and a lot of the customers, a lot of the gamers are very anti-crypto. It's not a welcome environment.
Yeah,
usually.
increasingly so.
Increasingly. And how do you navigate that way? Because isn't that the thesis? But actually, I think we've had the frame a little bit wrong the whole time. When I think of like how many Bored Apes were onboarded, it came in through NBA Top Shot. I think actually collectibles has done a lot more for onboarding in this space than anything else. Like when it comes to PFPs themselves, they're collectibles, right? People talk about Bored Ape traits all the time. NBA Top Shot was collectibles. And now if you look at what's actually making money in NFTs today, I'm not talking about the institutional stuff that you're talking about with equities coming on chain or, trades on Hyperliquid. What I'm talking about is Collector Crypt, BZ, Fidgetals. These platforms like Collector Crypt made $14 million last month. It's a different meta. It's all tokenized Pokemon cards, but it's still tokens. And so I really feel like you can take collectibles and gamify them, but like maybe we got the frame just slightly wrong by saying it's going to be gaming that brings everybody in.
Okay. We're gonna dig into this. Okay?
Yeah.
Getting the framing wrong. We've spent the last, 8 years trying to figure out what the killer use case is for blockchain. And there were moments where we thought it was going to be collectibles. Then there are moments where we thought it was going to be gaming. And now we've kind of realized that the killer use case for blockchain, the underlying technology, is actually just money. And it is boring. It's a big market, big dollars. The big players are coming in. And I would argue actually that when it comes to the purity of Web3, the creative side of Web3, the community side of Web3, that even though, again, that market has decreased in total quantum over the course of the last X number of years, but now the people that are engaged in that market are there for the right reasons. Because none of us can deny that there are a lot of people that eventually became ape holders, as an example, not necessarily because they understood what an ape represented or they wanted to truly engage in the community, but because they saw it as an asset that kept appreciating.
Yeah,
and
they're speculating.
I'm going to guess that they were also the first out, right? When those assets started depreciating. And so now, and it's great to hear that the unique number of wallets has continued to grow, which means that people who are opting in, I hope, for different reasons. Okay? So what are those different reasons now? That concentration of new holders, what are they there for?
I think the nuance to capture and like the question really is like, I don't know that there's any one definitive killer use case for blockchain. I don't think that anybody's allowed to say that.
And why? Why do you say that no one's allowed to say that?
Because I think that what we're evaluating on what the killer use case is TAM right now. Like what's the total addressable market for collectibles versus fungibles versus equities? And that has always shifted. It shifted based off of the meta. At one point, NFTs the Otherside mint shut down Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like it depends on where we are in the phase of the cycle. And you see what's coming into vogue right now is AI, it's privacy, it's stablecoins. Does any one of those three things have to win? Or is it all three of those things are the most popular use cases right now? it seems like some of that is rotating out, and now on-chain equities are coming on, like bringing the stock market to 24/7. You've seen Hyperliquid pick up a lot of energy, both because of pre-IPO status with SpaceX, but also trading oil futures while the traditional markets are closed and while news is unfolding in the Middle East. So I don't know that it's any one of these is the definitive use case. I do think there is a component where, the amount of money that could be made through speculation determines what is the cool thing at that moment.
So tell us then, how do we make NFTs cool again? Or is that not even the goal?
I think NFTs, it's still a funny word. Like so I was watching the Super Bowl in LA. I'm from LA. So I was watching the Super Bowl, and like there's a commercial that comes on. It's a Backstreet Boys song. And everybody in the house is singing. It's a Super Bowl party. They're singing along with this nostalgic thing. And at the very end, it goes, Coinbase. And everyone groans. Everyone's like, oh, crypto.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a crypto bro commercial. And I'm in the back, like, and under my breath, I'm kind of like, I don't know, guys. If you knew anything about Coinbase, you'd find that it's actually great consumer crypto. And it doesn't matter. The masses don't there's resistance to it. And I think there's resistance to the phrase NFT as well. I think you've seen a lot of people start calling them digital assets. I think even something to be a non-fungible token, like something that is in the absence of fungibility, it's just like, it's weird branding. And whether it's digital collectibles or digital assets, I think we're definitely due for a rebrand and a reframe. And I do think what's happening in digital collectibles is interesting, because people go like, well, what's backing the token? And we joke, like, oh, it's a monkey JPEG. Give me your hard-earned money for a monkey JPEG, right? But like right now, you're seeing Pokemon cards get tokenized, and those Pokemon cards are essentially cardboard with foil on them, slabbed in a warehouse, and you can redeem today that token for something that's secured in a warehouse. The benefit is like you're taking something that's just has a lot of friction, which is like moving physical materials in the world, and you're actually tokenizing them to bring them to global liquidity, so they're available to global markets. You could sell it to somebody across the other side of the world who you never would have found as a buyer for your collectible. But I think that's what it is today as a test. In the future, and I know this is something that we've all talked about for 5 or 6 years now, but like I think you're going to see increasingly more slow things that happen. Like real estate is a very slow process. But once stuff like that starts coming on chain and you start treating it like a DeFi primitive, you could go out, you could buy a piece of land, you could put it, here and then borrow against it in Aave. And then all of a sudden you're using the money that you borrowed against the land as collateral to be able to start construction on the land. You could loop it yourself, and you take the loop out, put it on. It's just all of this composable stuff that you could do in crypto. We're still a little bit of a ways from that, but all
it's
this
also
is
not
test
a
products.
new story.
It's
this
not,
is something
no.
that we've been talking about, even here in Hong Kong, for at least 4 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it hasn't happened yet, not because the technology is not there, because it's been there for a while. Not because the right driving proponents are not there. They've been really, really, powerful landowners, property owners here in Hong Kong talking about RWAs for property here.
Yeah.
The question has always been whether or not there's actually demand. You put these things on chain, much like the same way as you tokenize a piece of art, famous art, and you put it on chain, you fractionalize it, and then what happens? And it's been proven, well, I shouldn't say proven, but we've seen over and over again that we do all that work, the thing goes on chain, there's a glossy press release, and then there is no demand. No one's buying it yet, right? But your assets are different. As the price drops, the floor has gone down. What you're telling us is that now people who were priced out, could not join the community, are finally able to, and they're piling in. Okay. I think that's different. I actually think that there is a much more interesting, at least near to midterm future, for the reinvigoration of NFT communities and whatever we want to call them, right? The Yugas of the world, and there really is only one, of what you guys are doing versus the dream of tokenizing slow assets.
Well, I don't think we've seen a really good job of anybody tokenizing slow assets. It would have to compete with like traditional real estate options. And I actually think it's very similar to how I was tokenizing memory. I don't think that there's a demand problem. I think there's a supply problem. For it to be a truly interesting, like if you look at the real estate RWA platforms right now, it's such slim pickings to browse to find good real estate that why would you give up the traditional routes where there's such like a lot more supply and inventory? I think the reason why they haven't worked out is because there's not been a big enough supply of that stuff to come online for it to be worthwhile. That's my take on it. But to your other point, I do think that there is a natural resurgence for Web3 communities, for people that believe in a future of digital assets. And they're going to look at what are the companies that are operating those assets? Is there historical value? Do they have a good plan for the future? And I think Yuga is really well positioned for that. And that's why you're seeing people come back into the fold and bet on Yuga again.
Let's talk about that bet then.
Yeah.
What are they betting on? The future of Yuga. You're 60 days into the job. I heard that there's a very clear vision. Okay? Share with us that vision, and especially those three big assets that Yuga has: Bored Apes, Otherside, and ApeCoin. What should we expect to see out of you guys and for those three assets and those communities over the next couple of years?
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do is just work on really complicated open-ended problems. And you've seen that with the creative before Web3. And I think there's no more open-ended, complicated problem than Bored Ape Yacht Club, Otherside, and ApeCoin. I think the three of those together is something that you need a really clear framework to communicate to people where you're going with it. And sometimes it's like where you're not going with it either. So for Bored Ape Yacht Club, I announced this when I became CEO. It's in the tweet. But basically I said, look, we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on IRL, which means we're a club. We don't just meet online, we meet in real life. It's not just something on your crypto timeline. It's something that's a part of your daily life. Number two is storytelling. We're going to focus more. And this is something that I really believe in. Like, we all have something called a Dunbar number, which is, as we've kind of like grown, there's about 300 people you could care in your life max. But if you want to organize beyond that Dunbar number, if you want to organize big numbers of people, you need to do it with stories. So stories is going to be a big way that we organize to our next level. And the third focus is style. We're an exclusive club, and that doesn't mean we partner with everybody. And the types of partnerships we do define, what our community is, what our brand is. And that could manifest in hanging out with Snoop Dogg, or that could manifest in the apparel that we wear. So those are the three lenses we're looking at for the Bored Ape Yacht Club to build into the future, our foundation on. And those have resonated beyond what I thought they would actually resonate with. So for in real life meetups, we said that call to action. We've had 35 meetups around the world within the first 40 days of me being in office.
And how many of those were actually run by the Yuga team versus community members themselves?
Pretty much all of them were run by the community members themselves. Yuga just made the call to action. We pay for like people's first drink and stuff and make it easy for that. But like the communities were hungry for it and they missed it. I think back to what was the most exciting thing in Bored Ape Yacht Club when I joined in June of 2021. And I reflected on it and I thought, the coolest things that Bored Ape Yacht Club did, it did before it had any money, before it raised any money. That like 9-month period before they did any raising was the cool stuff.
Yeah, like the early warehouse parties in New York City, as an example.
Yeah.
Those were way before the raise.
Right. And even in the first months, it was about, I could go to any city in the United States and I could say, hey, I'm in Seattle. Any Bored Apes want to get lunch with me? And I get like 10 people to come out to lunch. Just trying to bring that vibe back, because I think we really kind of like lost our way with that. And even last night here in Hong Kong, we had a meetup at a bar and 80 apes showed up. And they're all in full on BAYC, like clothing, like they've collected over the years. It's so great, So in real life is really important. And I think one in real life event is better than a year of managing Discord. Like when you get to know the person behind the PFP. That's when real connections are made. And I don't know that other crypto communities can do what we do. Like all those fungible communities, yes, you have your conference where you talk about the token, but there's not like...
Make that sound sexier. The conference is talking about tokens.
The conference where they're talking about the tokens. And those are good tent poles for people to be able to like rally around, for people to be able to present their jobs. But I'm talking about the latent spaces between those conferences. Are people connecting in those quieter moments? And I think you could really judge the strength of a community, not by, because we do our own, we have Ape Fest, which is a really big event that we put on. It's monolithic. And that's not to talk down on Ape Fest. It's just like the spaces between Ape Fest matter a lot more, in my opinion.
Okay.
So in real life is a big one.
Then let's move to stories then.
Yeah.
Whose stories are you telling? Is it about a singular, Ape Fest is, you're right, it is a monolith within the community. Is it a single story, or is it a fabric of thousands, tens of thousands of stories?
It's a really good question. You know, one of the reasons why I'm even out here in Asia, and I'm going to Taipei, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Seoul, is because the second day on the job, I was in San Francisco with one of the other apes, Vera, and she was there with another ape who was from Shanghai. And they were telling me the story that they were having to relay and educate everybody else in the Chinese ape community about what was going on. And I go, what's to educate? Like, it's all on Twitter. And they go, they're not on Twitter. And I go, oh, well, where are they? Should we go on WeChat or something? And they're like, no. So we have to research, okay, well, there's stories that need to be told, but we're not telling them on the right stage. So we put the team together and we started opening a Red Note account, a Douyin account. And we're telling more localized content to our Chinese community, to our Mandarin-speaking community. We're reactivating our Kakao channels to talk to our community in Seoul. And so that's just one like communication layer that we're improving. But actually, I think in storytelling, the most interesting thing we're doing, it's a very asymmetric bet, but we're working on a multi-episode anime. And that multi-episode anime, when you think about it, if everybody could go home to the living room and watch something, that's the Bored Ape Yacht Club. That's a different level of IP exposure that we haven't really gotten to in Web3. I think there's been a lot of aspirations, just like the RWA thing you were saying. It's like, okay, yeah, you're going to do a TV show, sure. And it's like, no, we're actually going to do it.
Tried it.
Pudgy's tried it?
Yeah. We're not talking about like Netflix level, but
yeah,
animation
I'm talking about
for sure.
Netflix level.
Okay.
No, they did the Little Pudgy's show on YouTube, which is different from the aspiration that we're doing.
Got it. So like Netflix level, multi-series,
multi-episode animation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a different level of production value that we're bringing to the table with this. And, you know, I think that that's one of the things that it's harder to piecemeal that stuff out to the community and get them overhyped about it.
Fair.
But that is an investment that we're making. And there's definitely other communities. I got to give it up to Klainos, because Klainosaurs just did their micro series animations. So it's not like other people haven't done it. They've not done it at the scale that we're attempting to do it.
Okay. When can we expect that?
I can't give you the time.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, that's gonna be a really good one though when it comes out.
And then let's go to style then.
Yeah.
Style matters a lot.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I feel terrible sitting here dressed in black and white shoes while you're actually...
It's cool.
You look very cool. So what should we expect in that style pillar?
Well, you know, so on 420, Snoop Dogg's manager called me up and he goes, hey, we're opening up an ice cream store. We're doing a party at Death Row Records. Do you want to have 40 Bored Apes come out and smoke with Snoop Dogg on 420? And I was like, well, that's a great partnership. That's style, right? And a lot of this, we made some personnel changes. That's one of the things that I did on the Bored Ape team. We used to have to, you know, manage some outside firm if we want to make apparel. And so there's layers and layers and layers. Now we have brought on people who are natively, like they have an apparel background. They can make a tech kit. They have factory relationships. And so the energy, the calories that are burnt are spent more focusing on the details that make something premium. And I think that styling is going to change the tone of the next set of drops that we do. We've also announced anchor drops just this past week, which we're collaborating with a bunch of very cool high-end artists, the first one being King Saladin. And there's a lot more in the can for what we're going to do with style, but certainly like we're focusing on less on like the Bored Ape component of it, but more on the vibe of the yacht club component of it. And I think there's a lot of playfulness that we'll do there that's going to be rolling out in the coming months.
That will play well here in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Very much a yacht city. Otherside and ApeCoin. You know, we're talking about these three pillars that I'm sure runs across all three sets of these IPs.
Yeah.
Our listeners are going to be most familiar with the Bored Apes.
Yeah.
What about Otherside and ApeCoin? Where do these two worlds, what should we expect from these two worlds in the coming future?
So when I talk about like Bored Ape Yacht Club and Otherside, I think a good mental framework to keep in your head is like Bored Ape Yacht Club is all about exclusivity, right? It's about picking the right stuff. Otherside is all about inclusivity. We have over 500,000 avatars, over 200 communities on Otherside. Currently, we're not really spending any money on user acquisition on Otherside. We're spending it all on products. We've actually acquired a whole company of people out of London in February. So everyone is doing a big build with Otherside, and there's a lot of folks showing up to participate in Otherside, and I think that's going to be a very big play. The way that ApeCoin ties into all of it is like, you know, ApeCoin is actually like a child of all of the regulatory framework that I was talking about earlier. You know, there's like a Cayman's entity and there's a DAO and there's a foundation. It's like, it's so complicated for an outsider looking in to say like, okay, well, why is it shaped like that? And it's like, it's shaped like that because like no one would tell us the rules, right? And so what I've been doing is simplifying the layers and having less firewalls between what we're doing from a product standpoint and what the network and protocol are doing. And those changes really started in April when I took office. And when I look at ApeCoin, one of the things that I've been talking about with holders on the tour is like by many metrics, I think it's oversold. I think it's really like beat down. Alts in general are beat down ever since October 10th. Like that was a very bad moment for the space. But, and here's the thing, I think a lot of those alts, they may not come back. But I think ApeCoin is different because ApeCoin actually competes in the digital social spaces. It competes in communities. And I think what's really needed is a narrative shift, a perception shift. And those are all the pieces that I'm putting together. And that's the part that I litigate when I meet with holders in each of these cities. I show them every metric by which I believe ApeCoin is oversold. And that I think with just a slight change, it is going to be one of those multi-cycle tokens that people are going to go like, man, I really wish I got in like at that moment.
I love that. It really does feel like, Figge, there is a return to the OG spirit of what these communities were supposed to be about. They were about, as you mentioned yourself, may have lost their way over the course of the last few years. And you're making that extra effort to make sure that we rediscover
I think
why community matters.
We are rediscovering why community matters. I think that's what the market is saying right now, that community matters. And I don't hold it against any other project for having a different playbook. Like Yuga is in a position where we have a lot of runway. We can make decisions that are very long-term compared to other projects. And I think that what we're seeing is a symptom of other projects because royalties went away, that they need to figure out how to get revenue in the door. So they might deprioritize their Web3 audience. They might try to go for a bigger distribution Web2 audience. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, but I think people in Web3 want to make sure that the token matters, that their community matters. And that's kind of okay, so like coming out here and coming to these cities, people ask me, so who do you want to meet? What types of meetings do you want to have? And I think typically the answer is like you want to have B2B, B2C partnership meetings or media, right? But first and foremost, I want to meet the community in each city. And I think that's counterintuitive because like, I do think a lot of projects see their community as like insatiable, like they just want like the next airdrop or the next token or whatever it is. And, you know, there's a lot of history to support that attitude and behavior.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, part of coming out here is just making sure that the community that got us here knows that we still value it. And frankly, like if you have a strong community, it makes partnerships easier. It makes media easier, right? If you prioritize it the other way around, and you don't really prioritize the community, when you get a partnership, who's going to be there to participate in it? When you get on media, what are you going to have to talk about?
Yeah.
You don't have a community.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm prioritizing the community. And I think a lot of people appreciate that in this space. And that kind of energy is going to bring in more people who have common values.
That's excellent to hear. So IRL, stories, style.
Yes.
BAYC remains about exclusivity.
Yep.
Otherside is about inclusivity. And because of all of this together, that's why ApeCoin is going to continue to matter and grow in its value.
I love that phrasing. I think mine is slightly different. I think that is a long-term reason. That's definitely the strongest rhetoric. I think in the short term, we just have to solve for the fact that ApeCoin is oversold. It is definitely oversold. And then once we break a trend line, I think that that's when you're going to look at the fundamentals more. Like, I think people just have a hangover of past scars, when really, if you look at the metric, okay, so a Bored Ape right now costs $15,600 if you were to buy a Bored Ape. There's 5,616 unique Bored Ape holders. That means 5,616 wallets, holders, people have $15,600 of a token in their wallet. In terms of on-chain, there are 150,000 wallets with ApeCoin in them, right? I started to wonder, how many of those 150,000 wallets have a Bored Ape's worth of ApeCoin in them? It's 319.
Wow. Tiny, tiny number.
Tiny, tiny fraction, right? And when you look at that, you go, oh, this is actually like a solvable problem. Because I think people are stuck in a state where they don't realize that somebody's working on this problem. There's not somebody sharing the new narrative, right, of why this is going to turn around. And basically, like, another way to put it is that insiders are 95% underweight on a critical primitive to the ecosystem they love, right? It's a 20-to-1 ratio. I don't have to get that perfect. What we do is we take that to a 10-to-1 ratio. We make sure that it's 90% underweight. And I think at a certain point, like, and that point for me is really around the $300 million market cap. Because if you actually look at the last 30 months, if you zoom out on the timeline, you look at what the market cap chart does over the last 30 months, the support line was $300 million. And we were right at that point around October 10th. And 2 weeks later would have been Ape Fest. We had a lot of announcements lined up. I think we would have bounced right back off of the $300 million line. I think now, if you actually look at the chart, it's making a U shape right back up to that line. And as it gets to that line, through just better ideas, more visibility, going on tour and telling people about it, I think more people are going to agree ApeCoin is oversold. And when we break the $300 million market cap line, I think that's, and you know, this makes 6 months, 12 months, this could take a while, but like, once that starts to happen, that's when global traders look at, this is when the fungible people will look at it and go, this is going to be a multi-cycle token.
I think every part of your story fits this city that we're sitting in right now, whether it be the style, whether it be the community, definitely the tokenomics and the finance side of it, and for sure, the yacht club itself. So on that note, Figge, thank you so much for taking so much time with us today. Really appreciated the conversation. And thank you to everyone tuning in to Web3 Harbor's Smart Contact series. We will see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.